Welcome to Community Connections. My name is Linda Williamson, and today we're talking with Mr. Q. Hello, Mr. Q.
Hello there, Linda. It's nice to be here.
It's nice to have you here. Can you tell us about yourself?
Well, first of all, my full name is Thomas Walter Quinton, and I was born, I believe, April 26, 1942 in Markdale, Ontario, which is a home of Chapman's Ice Cream today. That great ice cream we get at Costas. A little plug there. That's the hospital I was born in, but we lived in a little village outside of Markdale, about 12 miles, which is just not too far from Owen Sound, Georgian Bay area, and a little village where my father at that time operated a general store, and that's where I grew up for the first 10 years, and then we also had a farm, and we moved down to the farm in which I stayed. I was there for about 11 to 20, approximately.
So what brought you to Schreiber?
Well, that's kind of an interesting story. I started teaching career in Thunder Bay, which was actually at that time Fort William. And I was there in 1965 for 2 years, and I boarded with John and Pearl Diddich. And they were acquainted with this area. John had worked on the railroad out of Heron Bay, and near the end of his career worked in Schreiber. And they had two daughters who are still here today, Zoni Fisher and Florence Fisher, the daughters of Pearl and John. So I got to know a little bit about Schreiber, and anyways, there was a job offering that came up in the fall of 1967 for a vice principalship. And I was just getting my permanent certificate at that time. So I thought, well, I'll take a chance. I talked to the superintendent. I enjoyed Fort William much. I talked to him and said, look, I've got this job offer, and it involves some administrative work, but I enjoy it here. If I go down for a year and I don't like it, would I have a job come back? He says, yes, you can come back anytime. So I thought that was kind of nice. That was 52 years ago, and I'm still here.
Did you get married?
Yes, I did in 1970. And I guess that's one of the main reasons I'm still in Schreiber, because it was an old Schreiber girl by the name of Sandra Gregoro, who has recently passed 2 years ago. And I'd like to tell the story of how I met her. It was kind of interesting. In the early winter, January, I believe, of 1970, we were into the new school board, the Lake Superior, which is now Greenstone School Board. And I was the head of our local union, and we were having a meeting in Marathon from teachers from Manitouwadge and Marathon and Terrace Bay Schreiber. And I was conducting this meeting because we were getting into salary negotiations. We're trying to amalgamate all the different contracts of the schools. And as I'm conducting this meeting, my best friend, Bruce Costell, was at the back, and he's talking to this young lady who I didn't have a clue who she was. And they're yakking away, and I'm trying to conduct this meeting. Finally, I said, if you two at the back would like to join us, you're welcome. But in the meantime, if you have to talk, you can go outside. Something to that degree. Well, now they ceased talking, and after the meeting, Bruce came up and introduced me to my future wife, and we were married 4 or 5 months later.
Wow.
Yes. Yeah.
Did you have children?
Yes, two. I have a son, Roy, who was born in 71. And a daughter, Patty, who was born 2 years later in 73.
And do you have grandchildren?
Well, I have five. Roy has two boys. And Patty has 3 children, Aurora, Kenny, and Casey.
And Roy's children's names?
Oh, they're Nolan and Cole.
What did you do for fun as a child?
That's interesting. When we lived in the village, by the way, that village was called Walters Falls, and it was settled by my great-great-grandfather who started a mill there. And that's where the Walter name comes from. I forgot to mention that at the time. But I had several cousins around the same age, and we did a lot of exploring. We were right on the Niagara Escarpment, so we knew every cave that there was for miles around. And my father's always telling me, now son, don't go in those caves, you know, but of course we did it that anyways. That was one of the things we did. Of course we played softball and all the other things that kids do at that time. When I went down to the farm, there wasn't hardly anybody to close by. There was a girlfriend just a little, not too far away, that has still is a lifelong friendship that I have with that lady. And there was a river going through, so I used to do a lot of fishing. There was speckled trout in that creek. It was a spring-fed creek. And a lot of just doing things, making maple syrup and that sort of thing in the springtime.
Oh, that's neat.
Yeah.
Tell us some of your experiences while teaching.
Oh my goodness, we're going to be here for a week. I think I could write a book on those. A lot of my memories of teaching came from my 7 years I spent in the public school here. And after the 7 years, I moved over to the high school and finished my career there, a total of 32 years. But some of my most memorable experiences came from those early days. And I was thinking about this yesterday, and there was two things that really popped into my mind in the public school experience. And it was about 1971 or 72 in that neighborhood, and Gloria Miller was teaching at the school. Gloria lives in Terrace Bay today, and anyways, she was doing music, and I didn't like doing music, but we had to. So she did the music, and I took her kindergarten class a couple of times. Imagine me teaching kindergarten. So anyways, it was like, what am I going to do with science, you know, and with these kids? And we had this new science equipment in the school, and there was all these microscopes and that sort of thing. I said, I'm going to get these young kids to look in a microscope. So we got busy and we set all these microscopes. There'd be a dozen of them set around. We had tables in the classroom set around, and the cords going here and cords going there. And I had these flies, and if you ever look at the wing of a fly in a microscope, it's an amazing thing. So I had this all set up, and I told them what to do, and they went right to start. Well, I can't see anything, Mr. Quinton. I can't see this. So I'm going around trying to help them, and all of a sudden, there was this kind of, oh, and it was Patty Collinson. I'll never forget. She says, oh, and look what I see. And then all the kids all rushed in over there to see. They forgot their own, see that? And of course, all these cords on the floor, they caught them, and there was the scopes going all over the place. And that was the end of that lesson. And I never did it again. Well, it's some things you never forget, but the most memorable, other memory I had, one of the jobs I had as a vice principal, I had to do look after the attendance books every month, and I was checking them, and I noticed this one boy, named by the name of Richard Minnow, and I've talked to him about this since, and he was absent the last 3 days. And I get into another book, another class, and here's one of the Pinion boys. Now, I just don't know which one it was. I think it was Rick, but it doesn't matter. And he's absent the same days. This is kind of strange. So I go across the hall or whatever, and I get a hold of Mail in Pinion. And I said, is Rick, oh, yes, sir, he's been very sick. He's been at home. And I said, that's strange. I haven't heard it. I got back to my office, and I thought, there's something not right here. So I get on the phone, and I phone Bob Minnow. Hi, Bob, this is Tom Quinton at the public school, and I noticed that Rick has been absent. He's been homesick. No, he's not, he says. He's at school. And I said, well, he has been here for 3 days. Well, he came home for lunch today. And I said, well, I think that, he's not here. And he hasn't been. Well, let me look into this. And then the funniest thing of all happened. It was about 15 minutes later. Up the sidewalk comes Bob, and he's got Rick by the ear on this hand, and he's got his own son, Richard, by the other ear, walking up into my office, sit down, and they were just kind of petrified. And I said, well, Bob, I said, what should we do with these boys who weren't coming to class? Well, he says, I think you should give them the strap. And those are the days where we had to do that.
Oh,
Not
no.
so nice a job. And I said, well, we'll think about that one. But in the meantime, boys, you go down to your classroom and you explain to your teacher what you've been doing the last 3 days. And away they went. I closed the door, and I'm sure Bob and I laughed for about the next half an hour about this situation and discussed it. And they never did get the strap, of course. But we did have a little talking to, they had told their sister, Betty Ann, or what, forget her name now.
May Ellen?
May Ellen, pardon me. May Ellen, and to keep quiet. I don't know how long they thought they were going to get away, but they were in this garage or something that they had gone to, and Bob knew where they would be. So there are many, many, many other stories. There's lots of high school stories, but I'll just have to leave that for the time being.
Thank you for sharing that with us. What are your favorite memories of being in Schreiber?
Oh my goodness. So many memories. Being associated for many, many years with the Kinsman organization, we had so many great folks in that. There's so many who are still here today. Unfortunately, many that have passed. But we had just a great time. The Kinsman logo was serving your community's greatest need. And but there was also an unwritten rule, which I hopefully have applied to life, that you don't do anything unless there's fun attached. So everything we did, it was fun. And out raising money, selling peanuts at Christmas time, and we'd always have a little party afterwards and this sort of thing. That was a great memory. Most recent memories in the last 30, 40 years, of course, is my association with my camp. I have a log cabin back in the bush, which is my second home, and there's so many memories there, and the neighbors that it involved. Schreiber has got two communities. They got the home community of Schreiber, and we have a bush community also. Those are two highlights I have, but many, many, many.
Do you have any hobbies?
Oh, yeah, mainly I garden, a vegetable garden. Sandy used to have a lovely flower garden. I try to keep some of it up, but unfortunately Mother Nature has taken over most of it. We always had a joke that if you're going to grow something, at least you could eat it, and you could never. I never ate flowers, but I still have the garden today, and not that I need it, but I always like the fresh vegetables and stuff, and I have a greenhouse for cucumbers and tomatoes. Just finished my last tomatoes last week, by the way.
Wow.
But I chop my own wood. Now, this may sound kind of silly that somebody my age still burns wood, but I've always done that and enjoy it. And I have my camp. We all call it camps here, not cottages. Right. And a snowmobile. Now, that's not a hobby, but that's a lifestyle. And I still immensely enjoy it. I have my machines all ready to go, and I'm waiting for now some snow and a little bit more frost to freeze up the lakes. I read a lot. Here we are in a library, and very seldom ever come here because I buy my books at Thunder Bay, and hopefully I'll read a lot of biographies and that sort of thing. Hopefully my grandchildren will read them in the future.
Well, maybe one day you will need a book that we have here, and you'll come in and grab it.
Well, I'm sure I will. I have in the past, but it's just I have a lot to go through at home. Yes.
Have you volunteered?
Oh, when? Recently?
Throughout your life.
Yes, a lot. It was of course the main volunteer group in Schreiber was the Kinsman Club in the past. I was on town council for a couple of terms, and that's mainly volunteer work and that sort of thing. I still sit on the cemetery committee, and I've volunteered for years and years and years to my political party. I'm still a member, sit on the executive of the North of Superior NDP Association.
Okay.
And we can't meet right now, but we're having a Zoom meeting tomorrow, so that's kind of interesting. Those are, I've volunteered for many organizations in the past in Schreiber, but now I've cut out most of that.
Do you have anything to share with us, like an object, a photograph, or something that's important to you?
Yes, I do. I brought 3 things.
Okay.
And I'll try to keep this kind of short. And I got thinking about this, and I had, back in the late 60s, when I first came here, and a year or so after I was married, I looked after the bookkeeping in the house, and I kept all my receipts,
Wow.
gas receipts and stuff like that. I threw them in this little box. And then Sandy started taking over the accounting when she was home raising the 2 children. And so I didn't use that anymore. And it got back in the closet. And I came across it a few years ago, and oh my God, there's that little box, this little metal box. And I dug out some of these things. I have one here. And it's from G. Figlamini Drummond, Street Schreiber. It's a gas receipt. And 1970.
Wow.
And I filled up with gas, and it was 6.0 was the quantity, and cost $3.43. And I showed this to my grandkids, and they said, "What's 6.6 liters? That's all." I said, "No, kids, that's not liters. That's gallons."
Exactly.
6 gallons. How big's a gallon? We went through. I says 5 liters in a gallon, and that came out to about 12 cents a liter. That's what it cost in 1970.
That's amazing.
So yeah, and I don't know why I keep these things, but it's kind of interesting. And then yesterday I was just looking through another pile of stuff, and I came across my first teaching contract, and I was in Thunder Bay, and it's got my name on it, and I agreed to teach. Starting September 1965 for 2 years, and the yearly salary of $3,500.
Wow.
And that was one of the highest in the province, by the way, at that time.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah, $3,500. And then I brought this along. Oh, another little thing I dug out yesterday. It was in that box. Sandy's first family allowance check for Roy, 1971. $6 a month.
Oh my goodness.
I don't know. Those are kind of interesting things to keep. But this is my favorite. It's not related to Schreiber. This is a Bible that was published in 1844.
Wow.
And inside this Bible, I'll put my glasses on for this, Linda. Inside this Bible, it says, it's written on this page you can see here. It says, "To Richard Quinton, on his going to America, in the sincere hope that he will read it daily, prayerfully, and regularly." Psalm 119. And it's from Reverend Purfoy, Clonical, Ireland, 6th of April, 1846.
Oh my goodness.
And it's during the potato famine. And this Richard Quinton was a cousin of my great-grandfather, Thomas Quinton, who came over at that time, and there was 11 of them. There was another family by the Seabrooks, and they were all mixed up, just the same as the Speciales and the Finkelmans and Schreiber today. But this Richard Quinton fellow was never married, and he died in 1867. Only 21 years after he got here.
Oh, geez.
And I looked up this Psalm 119, and it says, I don't want to read it all, of course, but it talks about you should be, as a young person, read the Bible and follow its laws. That's basically what it says. And obviously he didn't, because in 1867 he was found frozen to death after he had had too many uh, uh, drinks at the local tavern.
Oh no.
And he was found in his horse and buggy or whatever, his sleigh at that time, and
Oh
and
wow.
so he didn't obey that.
No.
But all the rest of the all the rest of the Quinton pretty well were teetotalers. And in the back is my great grandmother and great grandfather's signatures in 1894. So this is something that pass on down. Patty is going to get it, so we keep it in the family. And you see, it's been rather worn, not in the last 100 years, but in the first 100.
No, it's beautiful. What a keepsake.
Yes, it's something about that. Our family's been here for, almost 200 years now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Amazing.
And, yes, and my great grandparents, of which there's 4 grandparents. They were all born in Canada. All 8 great grandparents, all but one, and that was my great grandfather Thomas, was born in Canada. And it goes back to, we've been here a long time.
So where did they travel from?
From Ireland.
Oh, Ireland?
Yes, they were from Ireland. And they were, and most people came from Ireland were of Catholic religion.
Right.
And the Quintons and the Seabricks, they were the Church of England. They initially came out of England during the time of the Protestant revolutions, and they got land grants in Ireland. So they were known as the dirty Irish at that time. I think those wounds have all been healed since then. Yes.
Well, thank you for sharing that with us. That's amazing. How have things changed throughout the years, like with technology, society?
Well, Linda, we could be here all day talking about that one. Perhaps, I just find it, the change in technology, an old fart like me, I just give up, can't keep up to it. Though try to some degree. I just, you think of the cell phone, that there's more technology, there's more computer power in that cell phone than what the computers that put man on the moon in 1969.
Oh, exactly.
And that it just blows my mind, and how things have changed. I was mentioning about my camp, and I have a good friend that comes from Goulet River, who I've known right from high school days. And he's my electrician, my carpenter, and he builds things, and he comes up, and we very seldom fish. We talk a lot, and we construct. And we just finished putting up some solar panels this past year, and now I have solar energy that I don't have to use the generator in the daytime. And he sat down, and he was having a drink before supper. He says, Tom, he says, things have really changed since we came here 30 years ago. We used to have the naphtha lanterns, and you didn't have electricity. Now you have a generator, and then you got a TV, and now you've got satellite dish, and we have cell phones, and now we've got solar power. And he went outside to check on something, and I went out, I said, Ken, I said, that's interesting what you were saying. There's something else that we need around here. And he gave me this look, and he said, what's that? And I said, I think we need air conditioning. So he says, open the blankety blank window. And but that goes to show you, even in the bush, how things have changed so much.
It's not the same way as it was years ago when you used to go camping.
No, I think I'm on my 6th snowmobile or something like that. That I bought 2 years ago. It's a wonderful machine, and I paid a little over $17,000. They built my house in 1971 for $17,000. So, yeah, that's how a lot of things have changed.
How about with teaching?
Well, I've been out of teaching for, it's hard to believe, 23 years.
Wow.
Since I've retired. And I retired a couple of years early because there was a lot of teacher surplus at that time. And I said, oh, I can afford to go, and I want to do other things and give somebody else an opportunity. So as a result, I never went back. I never went back and did any supply teaching.
Right.
And I did other things. I drove for Halcon on the CP, for Halcon. I learned a little bit about railroading. I'm glad I stuck to teaching and not to railroading. But how has teaching changed? I can't answer that question. I could still go back and I'm sure I could teach, but I probably get fired the first day, but it's but I talk to the teenagers in town, and I have helped out just a few in math, though I don't tutor
No.
regularly by any means, and they're still the same kids. I loved teenagers when I got into high school, and I thought this is my nest.
Awesome.
Teenagers, yeah.
Do you have any stories about Schreiber?
Oh, I thought I told them all. Stories about Schreiber. Yeah, it's one that comes to kind of interesting. It was in the 80s, I believe, and I was on town council at the time. And we back in the late 70s, I believe, we got sewers put into town, and then the water treatment plant. And a few years later, well, we have to have a new water system because our pipes were always freezing up. We didn't have enough volume and so on, and there was no pressure. And it was in the late 80s, and I was teaching in high school here, and I was on the fire department. And we had our pagers, and we got a page. We had a fire. It was at the rec center, and not the rec center that's there today, but there was buildings that were there from the construction in Terrace Bay in the mill back in '82. So this was somewhere in the late '80s,
right.
And it was a big fire. And so we're all up there, and this is about 1-2 o'clock in the afternoon, and lo and behold, I look around. And here's Jack Stokes, who was a member of Parliament, and he was there. And Leo Bernier, who was the Ministry of Northern Development, was with him. And all these politicians had a meeting going on in Schreiber. And I went over, and there was a bit of a lull. And I remember Brian Birch was operating the truck. And all of a sudden, boom, we had no water because we lost our pressure.
Oh no.
And Jack turned to Leo and said, see, Leo, I've been telling you that we need a new water system in town. And Leo says, Jack, you'll get your damn water system. And lo and behold, it happened. Now, I mean, it wasn't quite as simple as that. But that, I thought, wow, that was it. And those of us remember Jack and what he did. And he always worked with everybody to try to get the best for not only our community, but the whole Lake Nipigon riding that he worked so hard for.
Definitely.
Yeah. But that was an interesting story.
How important is the library to you and to the community?
Well, as I admitted, I don't use a library myself to any degree. I noticed coming in, you've got a whole bunch of movies and stuff like that, and maybe I'll start looking at some of those because it's going to be a long winter again this year. But I just find it amazing of how the progress that has happened in the library. We're down in the basement here now. I had no idea that this was even here. And Donna and yourself have done such a tremendous job here. But the biggest thing that I see is that when I drive by here, there's always bicycles out front and kids. And as a former teacher, that does my whole heart good to see that. That it's being used. I don't, maybe they're just driving you crazy, I don't know. But at least they're here.
Exactly.
At least they're here. And the way the library has it's just not books anymore. The computers and what we're doing right now.
Yeah.
This is great. This is great.
How has COVID affected your life?
Wow. I'd like to say not much. Very fortunate, as most of us in Schreiber are. We have been blessed so far that we haven't had any outbreaks in Schreiber. And if we do, this winter, we'd be very fortunate if we can get through this winter without that, but I know we'll get through that. But yeah, I haven't seen my grandkids the way I'd like to. I always go down southern Ontario twice in a year. During black fly season in June, I get out of here and visit, and then I go down in the fall where we always have a family Thanksgiving. This year we couldn't do those sort of things. So I missed that, but I'm very fortunate in the fact that I've got my camp, and as soon as that ice freezes up, I'll only be coming back into town to get groceries and things like that. I'm very fortunate, and so many of us are, to get out into the wilderness.
Mm-hmm.
And I encourage everybody to do that, especially newcomers in town who've never seen the real country back to the north. I hope that they knock some of us on the shoulder and say, "Hey, can we go for a ride?"
Yeah.
Because it's a wonderful way to see what we have around.
Oh,
here.
definitely.
And winter is not a bad season. It's a good season.
It's a very beautiful season.
It is. It's a little bit too long, but but we make out. But how has COVID affected me? I just feel blessed in a lot of ways. Yeah.
How do you envision the future?
Technology, it's hard to predict, and if you're thinking about future, like in our community, you know, our community is not as large as it once was. And when I came here in '67, we had in the public school there was over 200
Wow.
students in the public school. And Holy Angels had over 300, and the high school, which is still here, was 100 and some. There was over 600 students in this town. There are a lot of large families. I think a lot of that has to do with railroaders, you know. I don't know, but there's a lot of maybe coming home in the middle of the night that caused that. But a lot of that has changed. Our population has gone down, but we have so many new people coming into town now, which I was talking to you before we got started about that, that we need to bring into our community and to show them what we have, you know. And anyways, I'm rambling here a little bit, and I realize that, but visionary, well, there comes a time that you can do a lot of work right from your home in Schreiber. And if we could get access to some of that high fiber optics that runs through town a little bit more, there's major things that can happen here. We don't have to be all stuck in the city and driving, 2 hours to get to work.
That's very true.
So there's going to be more of that. I'm sure that we've seen people coming into here and working out of their own homes, and that's a great thing. I know my daughter, Patty, who's a paralegal in St. Catharines and has an office in Hamilton, and she says she predicts that if things keep going, their office is going to be shut down again. She says, "Dad, if that happens, you get 2 weeks of groceries and you go to camp because I'm coming home and I'm going to isolate so I don't bring anything into the community.
Yeah.
And I can do my work right here in Schreiber through Zoom."
Oh, exactly.
And they're doing it now. All the court proceedings are being done right now by Zoom.
Oh,
So,
I didn't know that.
Yeah, they just got started on that, but they can't. She doesn't even see her clients anymore.
Wow.
Not the same way. No.
No.
So that's the future. Where that's going to lead us, I don't know. I really don't know. But I think the small towns have a lot of future. Like, why would you want to live in a big city? Why do you want to spend so much time going nowhere?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I agree.
Yeah. Like all my years I was here, I could walk to work 1 block over the hill, go home for lunch.
Yeah.
That was well worth it. Yeah.
I want to thank you for talking with us and sharing your stories, but I also want to thank you for all the years that you were a teacher. You were my teacher as well as Mrs. Quinton was my teacher, and I appreciated all the time that you spent with us and everything that you taught us.
Well, that's very kind of you, Linda, and I have a lot of memories that way, and that's a nice thing about living in a small town. And like I say, I came here for 1 year, and it's 52 years, and I'll be here forever. And and it reminds me, like, I think it was last year we had a seniors dinner, and up at the rec center, and I look around and I thought, holy God, these seniors, they were all students of mine. What's going on here? So it's really shocking, but I even had to ask you, did I have you as a student? Because I kind of forget those things, and I'll ask somebody that. Did you have? Yes, and you failed me on math. Oh, okay, I'm sorry, but that's the way it goes. Thank you, Linda. Thank you so much for this interview.
You're very welcome, and thank you. Thank you for watching.